The Eddie Stobart story. If you've ever driven along a motorway in the UK, chances are you've seen one of those distinctive green and red lorries with the white Eddie Stobart logo proudly painted on the side. They're so ubiquitous that they've almost become part of the British landscape. But behind that iconic fleet of trucks is a story that began very modestly. The company traces its roots back to Eddie Stobart Jr., who lived in Cumbria. In the late 1940s, he ran a small agricultural business, moving soil, fertilizer, and produce around the local area. It wasn't glamorous work, but it was steady, and it gave him a reputation for reliability. In the 1970s, Eddie's son, Eddie Stobart Jr., began to expand on that foundation. But while Eddie Sr. stuck mainly to agriculture, Eddie Jr. cast his net wider. He had the drive and ambition to turn the family business into something big, something that would eventually carry everyday items across the United Kingdom and become a household name. Unlike many small hauliers at the time, Eddie Jr. had a vision for something bigger. He wanted lorries that weren't just functional but also smart, instantly recognizable, and professional looking. And so Eddie Stobart was born. It started with one modest lorry and one driver. However, there was nothing modest about Eddie's ambitions. As the company grew, so did his dream. He believed a clean, polished truck reflected well on the business, and customers noticed. Soon, his small fleet of trucks began to stand out. Painted in the now famous green, red, and white livery, the vehicles weren't just trucks. They were rolling advertisements. Every lorry was washed daily, and drivers wore uniforms, something very unusual at the time in haulage. At first, some people thought it was a gimmick. Why put so much effort into the presentation of trucks? After all, they were just used for transporting goods. But Eddie knew that if he was going to succeed, he needed to do things differently. He wanted to create a brand, something that would make people think of Stobart every time they saw one of his lorries. Then came another quirky idea. Every lorry would be given a woman's name on the front. Now, most hauliers named their trucks after famous people or places. But Eddie wanted something different, something that would appeal to everyone. So he chose names like Tammy, Phoebe Grace, and Emma Jade. These names might seem random, but they were carefully selected by Eddie himself. He wanted them to sound nice and roll off the tongue. Little did he know that this seemingly insignificant detail would become one of the company's most famous trademarks. At first, customers were a bit bemused by the whole thing. Lorry names seemed like a bit of a joke, something to pass the time while stuck on the motorway. But Eddie was serious. He believed that naming the lorries would make them more memorable and help people remember the Stobart name. And he was right. People, especially kids, began playing spotting games on the motorway, trying to note down the names of each truck they saw. This grew into the famous Stobart Spotters Club. It might sound trivial, but it was actually genius. Eddie had created a way to get people talking about his company, which in turn led to more business. In the 1980s and 90s, Eddie Stobart became far more than a transport company. It was a cultural phenomenon. People all over the country were buying model trucks, teddy bears, and other merchandise featuring the now ubiquitous green and red livery. There was even a hit single released called "I Love the Back of a Stobart Lorry." But it wasn't just the gimmick that made Stobart successful. Eddie had a real talent for business. He was able to grow the company steadily and profitably, which allowed him to keep investing in new trucks and expanding his fleet. This meant that customers could rely on Stobart to deliver their goods on time and in perfect condition. In 1984, Eddie took the company public, but he never forgot his roots. He remained hands-on in the business and was often seen driving a lorry himself. This helped to maintain the company's reputation for being down-to-earth and customer-focused. It was this combination of traditional values, quirky marketing, and solid business sense that allowed Stobart to grow so quickly. The company became one of the largest and most successful in the UK, carrying everything from supermarket goods to construction materials. But Eddie never rested on his laurels. He was always looking for new ways to improve the business and expand into new markets. In the late 1990s, he set his sights on rail freight, which was a relatively new and undeveloped market at the time. Again, most hauliers shied away from taking risks, but Eddie saw an opportunity and went for it. He invested heavily in new rail infrastructure and rolling stock, and soon, Stobart was one of the leading rail freight companies in the country. Then came Eddie Stobart Air. Now, again, This seemed like a strange move for a haulier to get into the business of running planes. But Eddie saw the potential to create a niche freight airline that would offer a reliable, efficient service to businesses that needed to move high-value, time-sensitive goods. With a fleet of modern freighters, Stobart was soon flying cargo all over Europe and beyond. By the early 2000s, the Eddie Stobart Group had grown into a logistics giant, employing thousands of people and operating a huge fleet of trucks, trains, and even planes. But despite all this success, Eddie remained the same humble, hard-working man he had always been. He continued to drive his lorries, signed autographs for fans, and appeared on television shows like This Morning. Then in 2011, Eddie sadly passed away after a long battle with cancer. He left behind a legacy that few could have imagined when he first started out with just one lorry and a dream. Today, the Eddie Stobart Group continues to thrive. It's now part of the DB Schenker Group, one of the world's leading logistics companies. And the familiar green and red lorries are still a common sight on Britain's roads. But the company has changed in other ways too. It's grown far more diverse, with a workforce that reflects the multicultural society we live in today. And it's embraced new technology and innovations to improve efficiency and reduce its environmental impact. Despite all these changes, the heart of the brand remains the same. Smart trucks, a dedicated workforce, and a public that feels oddly affectionate towards what could have been just another haulage firm. The Eddie Stobart story is one of vision, branding, and pride in doing a simple job exceptionally well. When Eddie Stobart Sr. began hauling fertilizer and produce around Cumbria in the 1940s, he probably didn't realize that his son would one day turn the business into a national icon. When Eddie Jr. started painting his lorries in eye-catching green and red livery, it seemed like a bit of a risk, but it paid off in a big way. Eddie's decision to name the trucks after women was a stroke of genius, capturing the public's imagination and turning lorry spotting into a popular pastime. It's a testament to Eddie's creativity and intuition that he was willing to experiment and take risks. He could have been content to just run a small haulage business, but he had bigger ambitions. He wanted to create something special, something that would stand the test of time, and in a way he did. Today, the Eddie Stobart name is still synonymous with quality, reliability, and a touch of British eccentricity. Sure, the company has changed a lot since those early days, but the core values that Eddie established remain the same. That's why the green and red lorries still turn heads, and why the Eddie Stobart brand continues to resonate with customers and the public alike. It's easy to dismiss a company like Eddie Stobart as just another haulage firm. After all, transporting goods isn't exactly the most glamorous business. But Eddie Stobart proved that even the humblest of enterprises can become a national treasure with a bit of imagination, a lot of hard work, and a fleet of snazzy green and red lorries. So next time you're stuck on the motorway, take a look at the Eddie Stobart trucks thundering past you. They might just be delivering another load of fertilizer or produce, but they're also a reminder of one man's extraordinary journey from humble beginnings to national icon. A journey that began more than 70 years ago with a farmer's small transport job in Cumbria. Now check out this video here, or take a look at the latest news updates.